80 large wildfires are burning across the United States right now, and 2026 is already the worst fire year on record. 7.2 million acres gone. That's 169% of the 10-year average, and it's only mid-August. Tonight in Washington state, a fire the size of a small country is burning just 30 miles from Leavenworth. NASA satellites picked up 97 separate heat detection points in Chelan County alone, all of them overnight. That fire burned straight through the night, which tells you exactly how intense and relentless this situation really is. Meanwhile, a brand new fire exploded in San Diego yesterday, forcing immediate mandatory evacuations across 2 full zones. And down in New Mexico, a fire near Santa Fe is exhibiting what we call extreme fire behavior, long-range spotting. That means burning embers are being lofted miles ahead of the main fire, igniting entirely new spot fires downwind. My goodness, this is an action-packed and deeply serious fire weather situation from coast to coast today. And the weather setup, the heat, the wind, the low humidity is not letting up anytime soon, according to the latest NWS guidance. So let's get right into it and break this all down region by region. We're going to start in Southern California and work our way north and east across the entire country. All right, let's start in San Diego, California, where yesterday afternoon the Sorrento fire made a very fast and aggressive run. This fire ignited northwest of the 10700 block of Juniper Park Lane in Sorrento Valley around midday. Burned 131 acres through Los Peñasquitos Canyon Preserve. A stunning rate of spread for that terrain. By Sunday evening, crews had pushed containment up to 25%, and all evacuation warnings were officially dropped after 7 p.m. That's a solid outcome given how fast this thing moved. Credit to San Diego Fire Rescue for that aggressive initial response. But 13 new fires started in Southern California just yesterday, so resources are being stretched very thin across the region. Up the coast at Big Sur, the timber fire on the Los Padres National Forest has burned 5,103 acres. It's only 17% contained and is threatening numerous residences along that stunning but extremely rugged Big Sur coastline. If you're in the Big Sur area, pay very close attention to any evacuation orders. This one is still very much active. Now let's move into Northern California and one of the most interesting stories in the Great Basin today. The bug fire, managed by BLM's Carson City District, originally ignited on August 8th at 4:08 in the afternoon. It started east of Route 395 and south of Brinkman Road in Lassen County, and the cause remains under investigation. 8 days later, it has burned 94,105 acres across both Lassen and Sierra counties. The good news, and there is good news here, is that bug fire is now 85% contained as of Sunday evening. Now, I want to take a second and explain what 85% containment actually means, because this trips people up all the time. Containment is not about how much of the fire is out. It's about how much of the perimeter has been surrounded by a control line. Think of it like a fence. 85% of the fence is built. That remaining 15%, still open, still capable of spreading. Inside that perimeter, the fire is absolutely still burning, smoldering, creeping, and very much alive in the fuel bed. Firefighters on the ground report progress constantly to the incident command, and mappers update that percentage as new fire line gets built. Containment tells you how confident crews are that the fire won't escape the perimeter, but it does not mean the fire is out. Remember that. Full containment for bug fire is targeted for August 21st, and fire behavior right now is described as minimal, backing, and smoldering. 766 personnel remain on scene, down 83 from yesterday, a sign things are genuinely winding down there. Now let's swing northeast to the Great Basin, where the Black Canyon fire in Utah is a completely different story. 29 miles southwest of Price, Utah, on the Manti La Sal National Forest, only 36% contained and actively burning. Fire behavior there is described as active, flanking, backing, and isolated torching, and evacuations are currently in effect for residents. Nearby in Utah, the Widemouth 2 fire on the Fish Lake National Forest is 84% contained after burning 129,000 acres. That one is very close to being wrapped up, but evacuation orders remain in effect. Please don't let your guard down just yet. All right, now we head into the Pacific Northwest, and folks, this is where the story gets really serious today. The Northwest is at National Preparedness Level 5. That is the highest level that exists in the entire federal fire response system. According to NIFC, 37 uncontained large fires are burning across Washington and Oregon, with 16,124 firefighters deployed. National Preparedness Level 5 means specifically that 80% or more of all Type 1 and 2 incident management teams are committed. That's the definition, 80%. Meaning there is almost no reserve capacity left in the national firefighting system right now. The biggest and most concerning fire is the Little Giant Fire on the Okanogan-Wenatchee National Forest in Washington state. This fire is burning 30 miles northwest of Leavenworth, has consumed 132,990 acres, and is only 10% contained. 10%. On a fire that size, my goodness, that tells you just how difficult this terrain and this fire behavior have been to work against. 26 structures have already been lost. Total suppression costs have hit $59.3 million and are climbing daily. This fire started on July 15th from a lightning strike, the same ignition source responsible for so many fires across the Pacific Northwest this year. Evacuations remain in effect across Chelan County. Monitor the interactive evacuation map and sign up for Everbridge notifications right now. A Red Cross shelter has been established at Enschede Warehouse Community Church. Call 509-784-2710 for information and verify current shelter locations at redcross.org. Now, here's the interesting thing about Little Giant. The NASA satellite data from this morning confirms just how relentless it has been overnight. Wildfire satellite detected 97 heat detection points in Chelan County in just the past 24 hours, all of them overnight detections. That cluster spans approximately 29 kilometers east to west and 15 kilometers north to south. A truly enormous fire footprint on the satellite. The fire radiated a peak intensity of 8 megawatts with a total cluster energy of 248 megawatts detected in that period. A fire burning that intensely through the night never cools down. Crews cannot gain ground on a fire that simply never sleeps. For today's NIFC situation report, 1,985 personnel assigned, 47 crews, 75 engines, 4 helicopters. Down in Oregon, the Grasshopper fire on the Mount Hood National Forest is the second largest Pacific Northwest fire right now. 90,130 acres, 10 miles east of Government Camp. 47% contained, but still seeing active wind-driven runs. And the Hagen fire on the Umatilla National Forest, 26 miles east of Pendleton, only 14% contained on 56,000 acres. Hagen is showing the really dangerous stuff, running fire behavior, active torching, and long-range spotting ahead of the main flame front. Numerous residences are being threatened on all 3 of those Oregon fires. Evacuations and road closures are in effect across the board. Now let's check in on that cluster of fires in Central Oregon that the GFC IMT3 team is managing simultaneously. Incident commanders Blair Joyner and Danny Gore are overseeing the Henry Fire, the Coyote Fire, and the Shingle Fire together. All 3 were caused by lightning, and that's a common ignition pattern when thunderstorms roll through dry fuel beds without dropping meaningful rain. The Henry Fire near Paulina Guard Station is at 97% containment on 29,850 acres, nearly finished. Coyote Fire, 5 miles south of Post, is 88% contained on 17,459 acres. Felling crews are working the north edge. The Shingle Fire, 14 miles southeast of Mitchell, is the big one in that complex. 73,179 acres burned. Good news there, high winds and low humidity tested those containment lines yesterday, and they held. The northern edge is now on patrol status. Highway 26 between Prineville and Mitchell has now reopened. Use caution, as firefighters and equipment are still active in that corridor. A level 1 evacuation, that's the get ready status, remains in place for Wheeler County residents near the Shingle Fire perimeter. Now swing all the way east to New Mexico, where the Frijoles fire on the Santa Fe National Forest is deeply concerning right now. 3 miles east of Condillo, 9,338 acres burned, and it is only 12% contained. 12%. With extreme fire behavior confirmed by NIFC, running fire, crowning, and long-range spotting ahead of the perimeter. Crowning, that's when the fire leaves the ground fuels and climbs into the tops of the trees, spreading rapidly from crown to crown. The satellite data backs that up. 50 heat detection points near Santa Fe County overnight, with the entire cluster burning through the night. Numerous residences and communication infrastructure are threatened, evacuations are in effect, and this situation bears very close watching. Meanwhile, the Cato 2 fire 40 miles northeast of Roswell, New Mexico, has reached 60% containment on 2,080 acres. Before we move to the weather setup, here's something that puts the scale of this entire emergency into perspective, and it's remarkable. The United States right now has firefighters from Australia and New Zealand on active assignment, managing large fires in the Pacific Northwest. 3 15-member international incident management teams and 196 fire line management personnel from the Southern Hemisphere are deployed here. There is also 1 Canadian large air tanker and 1 Birdog aircraft from Manitoba based out of Boise, Idaho, confirmed by today's NIFC situation report. 4 MFS C-130s from the Air Force Reserve and the California Air National Guard are also staged at Klamath Falls and Redding. And 240 soldiers from the 7th Infantry Division at Joint Base Lewis McChord are on the ground supporting the Modrite fire. When you are calling in international crews, military forces, and reserve air tankers simultaneously, that is the scale of this emergency. So, all right, let's talk about the weather setup driving all of this, because the latest NWS guidance is really important to understand here. The Weather Prediction Center's extended forecast discussion, issued early Sunday and valid through August 23rd, confirms this clearly. A southern tier upper ridges, and I'm quoting the WPC here, well established into next week, bringing hazardous heat to the south-central U.S. Across the southern plains today, Texas, southern Oklahoma, southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, that ridge is locked firmly in place. Temperatures are running from the mid-90s all the way into the low 100s, with no significant relief expected through this week. Minimum relative humidity values are crashing into the mid-teens to mid-20s. That is critically low for fire weather conditions anywhere in the country. In Oklahoma, the Burnt Canyon fire added 1,524 acres in a single day. That's what that environment produces. Scattered thunderstorms are expected to develop around the edges of that ridge today. Oklahoma, Arkansas, and much of the southeast broadly. But here's the catch. These are going to be high-based storms. They can produce lightning that reaches the ground without delivering meaningful rain. That's called a dry thunderstorm. And in fire weather, it's one of the most dangerous things you can have. Ignition without any moisture benefit. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, a weak upper-level disturbance is tracking through Northern California during the afternoon hours today. The NIFC Predictive Services section confirms this feature will bring gusty winds and reduced relative humidity across northeastern California and northern Nevada. That threat also extends into southeastern Oregon and southern Idaho, and this disturbance could trigger thunderstorms over eastern Idaho and western Montana. Once again, dry lightning over a landscape that is already critically stressed. That is the ignition threat I am watching most closely today. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Let me walk you through what the official guidance says about the coming days in the Pacific Northwest. The WPC Extended Forecast Discussion, the National Weather Service's official product for this period, gives us important context for the coming days. The upper ridge is forecast to gradually shift westward toward the southwest and southern plains as the period progresses through August 23rd. That is a slow shift. And hazardous heat and elevated fire weather conditions are expected to persist through at least August 21st or 22nd. Here's the honest assessment from the WPC. There is a complex pattern setting up in the Pacific with energy in the mid-latitudes and northeast Pacific. Their words, not mine, are that this lowers confidence in exactly how the troughing evolves and moves eastward in any particular model solution. In plain language, the models agree on the big picture, but they are not yet locked in on the exact timing of any pattern change. And I want to be transparent. Yesterday's GFS and European model runs were showing slightly different tracks for that weak disturbance over Northern California. Today's runs have them in better agreement, but the details are still evolving, which is normal at this time range and normal to acknowledge. Let me give you the year-to-date numbers from NIFC because the 2026 context is genuinely historic, and you need to understand the full picture. From January 1st through August 17th, firefighters have responded to 48,960 wildfires across the country. Those fires have burned 7,270,038 acres, 169% of the 10-year average for acres. 2025, the same date showed 3.7 million acres. In 2024, 5.4 million. Back in 2023, just 1.7 million. 7.2 million acres in 2026. We have already nearly doubled 2022's total, and that was the worst recent year on record. 10-year average fire count through today, 37,954. We are at 48,960, 29% above average. Now let's pivot to the big scenario breakdown for the Pacific Northwest and Southwest, and I want to lay out the range of possibilities honestly. 3 scenarios, best case, middle, and worst case, based on current NWS model guidance and NIFC predictive services outlooks. Best case scenario, the ridge shifts far enough and early enough that some modest moisture reaches western Oregon and southwest Washington by day 5. Even a modest increase in overnight relative humidity, getting into the 40s and 50s, allows crews to make meaningful fireline progress. On Little Giant, just 10% contained, any overnight humidity recovery is critical. It's the only real window crews have to work the perimeter. Middle scenario, and this is what the current guidance trend most closely supports. The ridge holds and conditions remain hot, dry, and elevated. Little Giant stays in that low double-digit containment range through the week, and we see additional acreage added to Hagen and Grasshopper in Oregon. Frijoles in New Mexico remains at critically low containment, with extreme fire behavior continuing under unfavorable atmospheric conditions. Worst case, a plausible but not certain outcome, not an official forecast, is a significant wind event impacting the Northwest fires. If that upper-level disturbance tracking through Northern California delivers sustained gusty winds to the Little Giant fire with low humidity, crews face serious challenges. A fire burning in timber with only 10% containment can escape quickly under wind-driven conditions. That is basic fire behavior science. The same threat applies to the Hagen fire in Oregon, where spotting is already occurring and any wind event could push fire across established barriers. Let me explain the key meteorological concept driving this fire season, what forecasters call a persistent subtropical ridge. You may have heard this described as a blocking pattern, and while meteorologists use that term informally, the WPC calls it a persistent subtropical ridge. Whatever you call it, here's the mechanism. A dome of high pressure is parked over the southern United States and is very reluctant to move. Normally, storm systems move west to east in the prevailing westerly flow. That's the typical pattern throughout most of the year. When this ridge locks in, it deflects storms north or south around it. The dome of hot, dry air just sits and bakes the region beneath. That's what's been happening across the western and southern United States this summer. Persistent heat, drought, and fire weather week after week. The WPC confirms this ridge will be well established into next week before gradually building north over the Four Corners and Northern Rockies late week. That northward build may eventually bring some change to parts of the Pacific Northwest, but that is a gradual trend, not a sudden relief event. Some longer-range model signals hint at a pattern change approaching late August into early September that could bring Pacific moisture to the Northwest. That is a low-confidence, extended-range signal, not a forecast. I'll put weight on it only when it shows up in days 5 and 6. What I will tell you is that fire managers nationally are acutely aware of the resource crunch that Preparedness Level 5 brings operationally. When almost every firefighting resource in the country is already deployed or on short call, responding quickly to new ignitions becomes extremely challenging. That's why initial attack, catching new fires small within the first operational period, is the absolute national priority at this moment. A dry lightning event over Idaho or Montana tonight that starts 3 or 4 fires puts enormous pressure on a system that is already fully stretched. On the Aspen Acres fire in Custer County, Colorado, 102,000 acres, 72% contained. That sounds positive. 915 structures destroyed. $101 million spent, the most expensive single fire in the national system right now. That is a devastating reminder that containment percentage and acreage alone do not tell you the full human cost of these fires. Okay, let's bring this home with what you need to watch for in the next 24 to 48 hours specifically. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, monitor evacuation orders closely and have your go bag ready to move. Conditions can change very rapidly with fire. An evacuation warning can become a mandatory order in a matter of minutes, not hours. Do not wait. If you're in Chelan County, Washington, near the Little Giant Fire, use the interactive map at bit.ly and sign up for Everbridge notifications right now. Wheeler County, Oregon, near the Shingle Fire, you are at level 1. Get ready. Have a plan and be prepared to move on short notice. If you're near Santa Fe County, New Mexico, near the Frijoles fire, evacuations are in effect. Do not wait for flames visible from your window. For the Southern Plains, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, elevated fire danger continues through at least August 19th per current NWS guidance. Do not burn outdoors. The air is critically dry. High-base thunderstorms rolling through without rain can start fires you never even see ignite. And across the Great Basin in Southwest, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, elevated to critical fire weather conditions are expected to persist through the week. All right, here is the bottom line, sourced entirely from official NIFC and NWS products as of today, August 17th, 2026. 80 uncontained large fires. National Preparedness Level 5. 7.2 million acres burned. This is a historic, serious, and still developing situation. The persistent subtropical ridge, confirmed by the Weather Prediction Center, is not providing meaningful fire weather relief to the northwest or southwest this week. The Frijoles fire in New Mexico, the Little Giant fire in Washington, and the Hagen fire in Oregon are my 3 fires to watch most closely. Expect daily updates as long as National Preparedness Level 5 is in effect, and based on current guidance, that may be for quite some time. If the extended model signal for a late August pattern change starts to firm up consistently in days 5 and 6, we will break that down together. And if we see new ignitions tonight from the dry lightning threat in Idaho and Montana, I will have a focused update for you very quickly. Once again, this situation is evolving rapidly. Give this video a like and subscribe and turn those notifications on so you don't miss any update. All information in this video is sourced from official NIFC situation reports, InciWeb, and NWS Weather Prediction Center products. My thoughts are with every firefighter on these fires and with every family that has lost a home or been forced to leave their community. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.